We don't always know why certain stories linger before the words even settle. This one did. Not because of what was taken, but because of how calmly it was presented as if harm could be itemized and justified. Aria Sloan's story stayed with us because it didn't begin with shouting. It began with entitlement dressed as reason. This is where she takes over. The lock didn't beep when the door opened. It just clicked, soft and familiar, like it still belonged to them. I looked up from my laptop and saw Victor Sloan already inside my apartment. He didn't pause. He didn't scan the room. He walked straight to the coffee table and set a thick gray binder down on the glass. The sound was sharp. Final. Helen stood near the door, hands folded, lips pressed tight like she was bracing for something noble. Chloe leaned against the wall, scrolling, not even pretending to look uncomfortable. "You still use the same code," Victor said, not a greeting, a note. I unlocked my phone and removed the code. The system chimed once. "Quiet. Done," Victor noticed. His jaw tightened. "We didn't come here to fight," Helen said. "We came to settle something." I opened the binder. The first page read, "Itemized cost of adoption and upbringing Aria Sloan." Under it were lines: adoption legal fees, housing allocation, food, clothing, behavioral supervision, emotional labor billed by the hour. At the bottom, a total written in bold, $687,900. My stomach dropped, but my voice didn't. "You kept receipts?" I said. Victor nodded. "We kept records." There was a pause then, the kind that changes the temperature of a room. From where we sat, it was already clear no one had come here to ask how she was doing. "Aria," Helen said gently, "you've done well. We think it's time to be fair." Fair. If this moment sounds quiet, it was quiet enough to hear exactly what was breaking. Stories like this don't unfold loudly. They arrive already decided. I closed the binder and slid it back across the table. "Get out," I said. Victor didn't sit down. He stayed standing, palms resting on the back of the chair like the room belonged to him. "We didn't invent this," he said, tapping the binder. "This is what it cost." Helen moved closer to the table. She kept her voice soft, practiced. "We made sacrifices, Aria. Real ones. You were not an easy child." Chloe laughed under her breath, still staring at her phone. "That's generous." I looked back down at the pages. The numbers blurred for a second, then sharpened again. Adoption legal fees, spread over years. Utilities broken down by square footage. A line labeled behavioral correction with a note in parentheses, additional supervision required. "You charged me for existing," I said. Victor shrugged. "We charged for what it took." The air felt thinner, not tense, just stripped of warmth. "You want $687,900? I said. "That's what this is." "Adjusted for inflation," Victor replied. "We didn't even include interest." Helen reached for my hand and stopped herself halfway. Her fingers hovered, then dropped. "You're successful now. You have more than enough. We're only asking for what's reasonable." Or, Chloe added, finally looking up, "You can stop pretending this company is just yours." That landed harder than the binder. Victor slid a second sheet forward. 30% equity, clean transfer. We walk away. For a moment, no one spoke. The city hummed outside the windows, a car horn somewhere below. Ordinary life continuing like nothing was wrong. We've heard silence like that before, the kind where everyone is waiting to see who will flinch first. I felt the old instinct rise up, the one that used to make me apologize even when I hadn't done anything. I pressed my thumbnail into my palm until it passed. "You didn't help me build this," I said. "You kicked me out." Victor's mouth tightened. Our obligation ended. Helen's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "We gave you 18 years. You gave me a bill," I said. And you waited until I was worth something to deliver it. Chloe stood, smoothing her jacket. Don't make this ugly. I closed the binder again. Slower this time. It already is. Helen exhaled slowly, like she was calming herself. We're not rewriting history, she said. You always knew where you stood. That pulled something loose. I knew I wasn't Chloe. I said. I knew that part early. Chloe didn't look up. Her heel tapped once against the floor. Victor shifted his weight. You were difficult. You pushed back. You questioned rules. I was 12. I said. I asked why Chloe got a car and I got a bus pass. Helen's voice sharpened. We didn't owe you equal treatment. We owed you care. The word care sat there, heavy and false. I remembered the night after graduation, my suitcase by the door, Victor standing in the hallway, arms crossed, Helen crying, but not stopping him. You're legally an adult now, he'd said back then. Our obligation ends. I hadn't planned to bring it up. It came out anyway. You gave me $200 and a list of shelters, I said. You told me not to call unless it was an emergency. Victor nodded once. That was structure. Chloe laughed again, louder this time. You survived, didn't you? Something tightened in my chest, not anger, recognition. We've heard that tone before, the casual dismissal that follows years of quiet endurance. I worked 3 jobs. I said. I slept in my car for 2 months. You blocked my number. Helen shook her head. We needed space. You were emotional. I was 18. I said. You were done with me. Victor leaned forward then. And yet, here you are. Thriving. Which proves our methods worked. The room went still. I stared at him, at the certainty on his face, at the way he had turned abandonment into strategy. You didn't raise me. I said. You released me. Helen's eyes filled again, but she didn't wipe them. We gave you a chance. Plenty of kids never get that. Chloe finally met my eyes. And now you're rich. So maybe say thank you. I stood and pushed the chair back. It scraped softly against the floor. I built something because I had to. I said. Not because you taught me. Victor straightened his jacket. Then this shouldn't be hard. Pay what you owe. I looked at the binder, then at the door. This conversation is over. I said. Victor didn't argue when I said it was over. He smiled instead. Thin. Patient. Think about it, he said, already reaching for the binder. We're offering options. Helen lingered by the door. Her eyes moved around the apartment, slow and deliberate. The windows, the shelves, the view. She nodded once, like she was confirming something to herself. You've done very well, she said. We're proud of you. Chloe stepped closer to the table. This place alone, she said, glancing around. It's more than we ever had. I laughed once. It surprised me too. You didn't come to see me. I said. You came to inventory. Victor slid the second page back toward me. 30% is generous. We're family. Family doesn't show up with paperwork, I said. Chloe crossed her arms. You didn't build all of this in a vacuum. You had a roof, food, stability. Until I didn't, I said. Helen reached for her purse, then stopped. Her voice dropped. If you refuse, we'll protect what's ours. The word ours hung there. We've heard that shift before, the moment when the visit turns into a warning. I don't owe you ownership, I said. Not of my work. Not of my life. Victor's smile disappeared. We'll let the court explain it to you. I walked to the door and held it open. The hallway air was colder, sharper. You used an old code to get in, I said. Do it again, and I'll call the police. Chloe scoffed as she passed me. You think money makes you untouchable. Helen paused last. You didn't have to make it like this. I didn't. I said. You did. The door closed behind them. The lock chimed once. Quiet again. The call came 3 mornings later. Early. Too early to be anything good. My phone buzzed against the nightstand, skidding a little before I caught it. It was Maya from finance. She never called. She sent messages with bullet points. "I can't get into the accounts," she said. No greeting, no filler. Everything's locked. I sat up. Locked how? Court order, she said. Emergency injunction. Promissory estoppel. Unjust enrichment. The words felt rehearsed, like they'd been waiting for a place to land. I pulled up my laptop, tried the dashboard. Access denied, tried again. Same red banner. My chest tightened. Slow and steady. They froze operating. Maya continued. Payroll, vendors, everything. I closed my eyes. When? This morning. Filed late yesterday. 3 days. That's how long it took them. A notification popped up before I could respond. Chloe had posted, the video was clean. Soft light. No makeup. Her voice cracked in the right places. "We just want our family back," she said. Aria cut us off. "She won't even talk to us." The comments rolled in fast. Heart emojis. Sympathy. Words like ungrateful and cold. We've listened to moments like this before. When the pressure isn't loud yet, just heavy. Maya was still on the line. "We can float a week," she said. "Maybe. After that." "I know," I said. I hung up and stood there, barefoot on the cold floor, phone still in my hand. Another notification. A voicemail from Helen. Her voice sounded small, fragile. "We didn't want it to come to this," she said. "Just sign the agreement. We can make this stop today." I deleted it without replying. Another message came through. Victor this time. Short. "Deadlines create clarity." I set the phone down. My reflection stared back from the dark screen. Tired. Focused. Not surprised. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to starve me out. I didn't call them back. I sat at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee I hadn't touched, watching steam fade into nothing. My phone buzzed again. Helen, then Victor, then Chloe, one after another, like a rhythm they expected me to follow. I broke it by dialing someone else. Caleb answered on the second ring. His voice was steady, low. "Talk to me." They froze everything. I said, "They want me to panic." He paused. Papers shifted on his end. "Did you ever agree to repay them?" "No." "Did you ever sign anything?" "No." "Good," he said. "Then we don't negotiate. We prepare." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. They're telling a story. Online. In court. Everywhere. "I know," he said. "We tell a quieter one. With documents." Another call buzzed through. Victor this time. I silenced it. We've noticed how some people mistake silence for weakness, especially when they've always been louder. Caleb kept talking. "Send me everything they gave you. Every page. Every note." "They kept records," I said, "of everything." "Perfect," he said. So did they. I glanced at the binder on the counter. The edges were worn, used, loved. In a way, "I don't want peace," I said. The words came out clean. "I want the truth on record." Caleb didn't hesitate. "Then we start tonight." I ended the call and turned my phone face down. For the first time since they walked in, the room felt steady. The courtroom smelled faintly of cleaner and old paper. I noticed it because everything else felt too loud. Chairs shifting, shoes against tile. Victor sitting straight, hands folded like this was a board meeting. Helen beside him, already dabbing her eyes. Chloe a row back, chin high. Their attorney spoke first. Calm, polished. He held up the binder like it was proof of care. "These are parents who made sacrifices," he said. "They kept detailed records. They trusted their daughter. She promised repayment." The judge nodded slightly. "Not much." "Enough." Victor glanced at me then. Just once. There was a confidence there I remembered. The same look he used when he thought rules were on his side. Caleb stood slowly. He didn't rush. He picked up the binder from our table and turned it so the judge could see the cover. "We're not disputing the records," he said. "We're grateful for them." Victor frowned. Caleb opened to the first page. "These expenses are labeled as costs, fees, charges. If that's the case, then they aren't gifts." He let that sit. "Their income." Helen stopped crying. Caleb continued. "Taxable income. Collected over 18 years. Never reported." Victor shifted in his seat. Caleb flipped another page. "And some of these payments came from a corporate account tied to employee retirement funds." The judge leaned forward. "We've heard rooms change before." This one did it quietly. Victor stood halfway, then sat back down. His face had gone gray. "That's not," he started. The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Sloan, sit." Caleb didn't look at him. "The spreadsheet tells a story, just not the one they intended." There was a pause. Papers rustled. A clerk whispered something to the judge. The gavel came down once. Sharp. Injunction lifted. The judge said, "Case dismissed with prejudice. This matter will be referred for further review." Helen's hand flew to her mouth. Chloe stared straight ahead, unmoving. Victor didn't look at me again. I stayed seated as everyone stood. My legs felt steady, heavy, real. The binder lay on the table between us, finally saying what it had been holding all along. No one spoke as we filed out. Victor walked ahead of Helen, shoulders stiff, like he was bracing for wind that wasn't there. She followed a step behind, one hand pressed to her chest, the other gripping her bag too tight. Chloe passed me without looking. Her phone was already in her hand. The screen stayed dark. Caleb paused near the doors. "Your accounts will be released today," he said quietly. "Give it a few hours." I nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated, then added, "They didn't expect this." "I know," I said, outside. The air felt different, not lighter, just clearer. My phone buzzed once, a notification from finance confirming access restored. No celebration, just confirmation. Victor stopped near the curb. He turned halfway, like he might say something. His mouth opened, then closed again. Whatever he'd rehearsed didn't fit anymore. Helen looked at me then. Really looked. Her voice wavered. We tried to do the right thing. We've seen moments like this, when certainty collapses and nothing replaces it. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to correct. Chloe crossed the street without waiting for them. The light changed, cars moved, life kept its pace. I stood there a moment longer, then turned the other way. I went home alone. The apartment was quiet in the way it usually is after something ends. Not empty, just still. The binder sat where I'd left it on the counter. I didn't open it again. I carried it to the trash, tore it in half, then into smaller pieces. Paper gives up easily when you stop treating it like proof. My phone buzzed once more that night. A message from Victor. No subject, no apology, just a line that read, "We did what we thought was right." I deleted it without answering. I slept for the first time in days. In the morning, I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the city wake up. Orders were moving again. Meetings were back on the calendar. Life had resumed its pace, like it always does. What stayed was quieter. For a long time, Aria Sloan learned how to survive by shrinking, by being agreeable, by leaving rooms before anyone asked her to. That version of me didn't disappear overnight, but she finally stopped running the show. I didn't win anything. I didn't reclaim a family. I kept something smaller and steadier than that. My name, my work, my sense of where I stand. And if this story sounds familiar in any way, it's because silence like that leaves marks. Some of us just learn how to walk forward with them. That's all I needed to keep. We don't hear triumph in moments like this. We hear space. And sometimes, Space is enough.